My name's Janel Green, and I am one of the co-organizers of the Atlanta March for Social Justice and Women, and now one of the co-founders of the Georgia Alliance for Social Justice.
Yes, and when did that start? Was it just immediately after the Atlanta March you guys decided to stick together?
We had intended for the march to be a one-time event and move on to work with different organizations, but the community asked us to stay together. The community really valued what we were bringing as far as developing a cohesive network amongst organizations and being able to mobilize individuals. And so we decided that we would reorganize and are working now to become kind of this long-term project.
All right, cool. And what goals do you have for the 2017 Civil Rights Progress here in Atlanta and national, whatever you like?
Sure. There's so many things going on. It's difficult to pick any one thing. I'm really excited about the civil rights legislation that's been proposed here in Georgia, being only one of, I think, 3 states that lack civil rights legislation is something that needs to be corrected.
What organizations other than you guys or movements or speakers should we be following right now?
For civil rights, well, I think that we're lucky. We have a number of really great leaders. We have Stacey Abrams in the House. We have Vincent Fort in the Senate. But then we also have Steve Henson, who's my state senator. He's one of the sponsors of the Civil Rights Bill. There's a lot of new up-and-coming people that are recently elected that I think are really exciting and are going to have a big impact. Park Cannon, Sam Park. The list is growing, and I think there's some really great candidates out there that people can be excited about.
So how is fighting civil rights now in 2017 different than the 1960s civil rights movement, or how is it similar?
One of the biggest differences, at least today as the movement stands, is when you look back at the civil rights movement. They had Martin Luther King, and everyone followed him and his vision and the principles that he set forth. There was a great leader, and I don't know if we have a great leader. I think we have great leaders. I think there's some really good people out there, but we don't have that one focal person.
The one iconic person.
Exactly. And so there's some good things is that we have more of an inclusive structure, but there's also some benefits, I think, that there were in the 60s of having that one point person that everybody could get behind. So it'll be interesting, I think, to kind of see how this evolves and see how some new leaders emerge.
Do you think it would inspire a big difference if there was that one iconic person?
I'm not sure. I mean, people really think
it's a very different environment.
It is, right. I mean, our culture has evolved significantly since the 60s. Our population is significantly larger. The civil rights movement was very much focused on Jim Crow and the horrible things that were happening in the African American community. And it feels like right now, every community is under attack. You know, there's issues for women, issues for different religions, issues for African Americans and Latinos and all of those different groups. And so I think that too makes it difficult with finding that one leader because there's so many areas in which we feel like we are under attack.
So you guys formed recently, and what do you guys want to do to promote equality other than organize marches? Like, what other kind of community outreach you guys looking to do?
Absolutely. So we're really in the formative stages. And so I think the things we're being asked to do are to not only create marches and actions. So sometimes that's things that you can do from home where it's phone calling, emailing, calling people out on Twitter, all those different kinds of things. But then we want to move into the work that our community partners, the organizations, have asked us to do and start to create some opportunities to bring them together. So we have a lot of work to do. It's been very difficult for us and a lot of newer organizations. We need to slow down for a minute and start to create some of that foundation, can then start to develop that path forward. The first 3 of us found each other through Pantsuit and started to form. And as we started to reach out to our networks and the broader Georgia community, then other leaders emerged and came forward, and we continued to expand our leadership. and it stuck. It worked.
Yeah, social media is great in terms of social justice progress. It can help and it can also hinder, but if you use it the right way, I feel like we can get more progress faster.
Yeah, you have to be skilled in knowing how to do it. And
exactly.
And messaging is important too. And it's interesting having a meeting with some older adults this morning and talking about the different ideologies now. There are some people are very anti and focused on fighting against things. We really framed our messages to trying to be positive and hopeful. And sometimes there's some rub between groups on that. It's like, well, you're not the right kind of protester. You're not disruptive enough. So it creates some interesting conversations. So they're like, oh no, that's nothing new. It's always been that way. Think about back in the 70s. There was the Martin Luther King movement, but then there was, Malcolm X.
And you guys are a very nonviolent, peaceful organization. What role do you think that plays in civil rights progress as opposed to the more radical, in your face, maybe more threatening kind of forms?
Some people are really comfortable with civil disobedience and, having sit-ins and getting arrested and sending messages that way. And I fully support that. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody has jobs or families where they can afford to be arrested and not have huge consequences in their lives. And so I think that our movement creates an opportunity to meaningfully participate in a way that's perhaps not as personally risky. When I met John Lewis at our march, I think he said he'd been arrested over 50 times. And that's not going to affect his job.
Or his reputation.
Right. It's not going to impact his reputation. Actually, it'll probably positively impact his reputation.
That's nice that there's a place for both tactics, though, depending on your stability right now in your personal life.
Right.
It's so nice listening to you because you have so much wisdom and background here, and I'm just kind of starting out, but I'm here to just learn and soak everything in.
Well, I'm glad that you are, and it's been fun getting to know so many millennials that are really interested in the movement and have so much energy, and I get inspired by the baby boomers, in their wisdom and their experience, because they're like, here we go again. It's like, they were these radicals in the 60s, and then they went on to have families and they were quiet, and now they're coming back to their activist roots. And so it's exciting to kind of be sandwiched in between, to learn so much from all of them, but yet be able to pass down, information and inspire the millennials.
Definitely. So a couple weeks ago, Timothy Tyson wrote a book called The Blood of Emmett Till. Mm-hmm. And in that book, it covers some of the disgusting scandals associated with that case. Yep. And one of the things was Carolyn Bryant admitted that she lied about Till's supposed, aggressive behavior towards her that sparked, her husband and her half-brother, or his half-brother's, torture and slaying of him. Yep. And it's disgusting because we all know that they're guilty, and for her to come out and just say that she lied about all this and that it just sparked this controversy for no reason, it's awful. And things like this are still going on today. And so basically what I wanted to ask you was, how do you think white people, and specifically white women, I suppose, can dissolve this white privilege?
When people hear white privilege, they feel threatened. And some of it is feeling threatened of the loss of privilege, but it's that they feel like they're being blamed. Mm-hmm. And for something that they didn't intentionally do. And when people feel blamed and sometimes shamed, it's difficult for them to hear the message behind that. Those are important issues. I'm not trying to minimize that, because we benefited from that privilege, and there's being silent and not doing anything. There was consequences for that. But when that's the start of the conversation, it makes people defensive. And it makes it difficult for them to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the conversations I've had with people who are super resistant to being able to own and understand privilege, it's had to try to shift away from that defensiveness and say, this is what it really means. This is what that privilege is. And it isn't that someone's trying to take something away from you. It's that everyone should have that privilege. certain people shouldn't fear more for themselves than others because they're being targeted and they're being profiled, and people have different and negative expectations of them.
Mm-hmm.
We have the privilege of getting pulled over and being able to talk back. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've been in situations where I fearlessly talk back to a police officer. And that's privilege. So helping people to see some of those scenarios, it's like, think about a friend who's African American and male. He could have never spoken to a police officer in the manner that I did. He would have been arrested and probably gone into jail. And so I think part of it is helping people to understand, well, we're not trying to take anything away from you. That privilege should just be mutual respect and understanding for everyone.
And do you think there's still a demographic out there of white people that are aware of their white privilege and still abuse it for their own benefit?
Anybody who has any kind of privilege can and will abuse that privilege when it suits their purposes. Absolutely. I think sometimes it's done intentionally. I think sometimes it's done unintentionally or subconsciously. But I think privilege of any kind is frequently abused because it's convenient. But again, it's trying to level the playing field and create opportunity for everyone. And people are afraid of having those conversations because there are, like the whole Van Jones thing,
Mm-hmm.
the messy truths. I'm not afraid of having those kind of conversations, but when you find someone who has such a different perspective, I think it's a growth experience for me to really understand why they felt the way that they did and what their perspective was. The more we keep talking and the more we keep having those conversations, the better off that we will be.